This is not a zero-sum game. That's exactly the point. You can deal with these two things at the same time. In fact, you really need to. So, unless you've been under a rock, you probably know full well about different things going on with the Trump administration with respect to universities and scientific research and all the rest. You probably know. What was going on last week, though, or no, I'm sorry, not last week, the week before last, as of this recording, was the Heterodox Academy's annual conference, which they have been quite loud, actually, about saying things about the problems that the Trump administration has been causing. Here's a good example of that, actually, from earlier this year, amongst other things. They've been very vocal against what the Trump administration has done. They have been very vocal against a lot of administrations and what they've done. So kudos to them with that. But there's also something that is very true here that I've seen this happen too, and it's been interesting that there's the external problem. We should just focus on the external problem. We shouldn't focus on any of our internal issues because we got all the external issues. Two things can be done at once. You can criticize the academy and everything that's going on with the Trump administration at the same time. You can do both. And that's exactly the point of this piece, which is why I wanted to bring it up. Yes, we can still criticize the academy in the Trump era. Two things can be true at once. Nicole Barbaro Simovsky, there we go. Take a second to read that. And so I think this is a really excellent piece to make that point, that just because there's a lot of external things to higher education that's going on, it doesn't mean we can't criticize and consider the flaws and failings internal to the university at the same time. And so that's where I want to get into with this, is to talk and think on a little bit what Nadine has, not Nadine, goodness, that's Nadine Strawson in the picture right there, but Nicole has written. Excuse me for that goof. I get a little thinking about that. I invite you to provide your own thoughts and commentary. And again, I spent a lot of time talking about universities and things that are going on here because of two reasons. Obviously, I've said many times over, it's where we train the next generation of scientists, but it is also where an awful lot of scientific research is done. So two things here related to why we think about the universities and things going on there with respect to the sciences at the same time. Nadine, wow, I'm going to do it twice. Nicole writes, a defining feature of Heterodox Academy's annual conference is that it really delivers on viewpoint diversity, especially in the plenary panels. By the way, they're on the Heterodox Academy YouTube channel, and I have been playing them back myself. They're excellent discussions if you want something a little bit more intellectually stimulating to listen to. I just put them on in the background while I'm working myself, and hey, great to listen to, actually. I highly recommend it. Especially in the plenary panels. Whereas academic conferences often default to polite agreement and incremental elaboration, our plenary sessions lean into spirited disagreement, to the great interest of our members. It's not just refreshing, but it's necessary for the health of the academy. The 2025 HXA conference was no exception. We witnessed spirited debate between Dartmouth's president, Sian Bielak, guessing, and I apologize in advance if I butcher the pronunciation of some of these names, and Wesleyan President Michael Roth over what actions are most urgent in the current political moment. Mark Bauerlein, trustee of New College of Florida, and Stephen Brint, professor of public policy at UC Riverside, disagreed on the role of government in shaping higher education. That one in particular, I know, is a pretty hot topic right now because of things going on with the administration. So I'm glad they included that. I haven't had the chance to watch that one yet, so I may go back and watch that one soon myself. Jerry Coyne of the University of Chicago, John McWhorter of Columbia, Louis Menand of Harvard, and Jennifer Frey of the University of Tulsa offered conflicting views on the nature of truth as the core mission of the university. These exchanges were not signs of dysfunction or misplaced focus, but evidence of a thriving intellectual culture. Yes, this is what it makes me so happy, because These are so intellectually stimulating to listen to. That's one of the reasons I'm recommending it. Is it is actually very, very intellectually stimulating to listen to the HXA conferences, and see them actually engaging in some pretty damn spirited disagreements. And a lot of them go have a beer or something afterwards. So hey, it's awesome. Have a beer, have dinner together, something like that, after having a knockdown, drag out verbal brawl on the stage. There you go. At the heart of these many disagreements was a fundamental tension. Should we be focusing on internal problems within the academy while facing an unprecedented political assault from the federal government? Obviously referring to the Trump administration there, but it is a tension regardless. Forget which administration it is for a minute. If you're dealing with interactions with the university between the federal government and the universities, well, do you bother with internal problems at all? And the answer to me, of course, you already heard me say it at the top, and what I think is yes. In the view of longtime HXA member Michael Roth, worrying about the culture on campus is quote, like talking about needing a better milkshake when the house is on fire, end quote. Good analogy. There are bigger fish to fry. With the second Trump administration canceling research funding and ideologically restricting scholarship, university presidents must rise to the challenge. It is their responsibility to protect their institutions against existential threats from the outside. But universities are not just run by presidents. They are living ecosystems of sorts composed of faculty, staff, and students, each navigating their own challenges. And for many of our members, especially individual faculty, the, quote, big fish are not in Washington, but in their own departments, disciplines, and classrooms. This is something that's true, I find of a lot of, there's a lot of folks who, for lack of a better way to say it, they just want to do research. They just want to be focused on what's going on there. And so the things going on in their departments in the day-to-day are important. They're not, unaffected, and particularly not now, with things going on external to the university. But it most of the time it is more focused on the day-to-day related things. The idea that external and internal threats are mutually exclusive is a false binary, as Dartmouth's Wheelock said in her response to Roth, and threats to our universities are not zero-sum. Multiple stakeholders with different spheres of influence can and must act concurrently. There is a role for all of us in reforming our colleges and universities to be the places we all believe they can be. Now, here's a pointed question, and it's actually kind of hinted at early on. Do we all share the same visions of what they can be or what they should be? That was the nature of truth argument, is why I want to go back and watch that too, is the nature of truth argument, nature of the purpose of the university, that's the correct way to say it, gets at that question. It's like, what do we think the universities are supposed to be? Do we share that common vision or do we not? I'm going to take a wager that even though it probably hasn't been discussed in depth, we don't necessarily all share the same vision anymore for what universities are supposed to be. And so I would sincerely consider that question. For nearly a decade, HXA has been a voice chiefly for internal reform, critically examining the consequences of ideological homogeneity in higher education and advocating for institutional cultures where open inquiry and viewpoint diversity thrive. Because the Academy's faculty leans predominantly left, our critiques have often been directed inward, from the left toward the left. I don't think this is actually quite right for HXA, because I've looked at the HXA list in there, and there's an awful lot of folks who are on the right who are actually part of HXA too. So, I would say it's from pretty much everybody toward the Academy at that point. But I feel free to disagree, obviously. As John Haidt noted in the founding of HXA, that's actually not a relevant thing here to the commentary. Anyway, let me get down to this. HXA's original mission remains vital, and the 2025 conference reflected this enduring commitment. Across sessions, we saw how sociopolitical bias can impact patient care in medical professions, how new research methods can free science from unjustifiably biased conclusions, what methods are tried and true to promote open discussion in the classroom, what reforms can open up ideological constraints in faculty hiring. These sessions, put on by nearly 100 of our members, modeled the very virtues HXA has championed from the beginning. This work has never been more urgent. Public confidence in higher education has eroded dramatically over the past decade, falling from 57% in 2015 to 32% in the latest poll. Now, the poll that they're pointing to, I actually want to bring it up real quick because I hadn't seen it. And this is a Gallup poll from last July that they're referring to, which I'm not 100% sure exactly where they got that number from, because this is that 57% number. But what they have... See, this is where I think this 57% to 32% is a typo. And just slight critique to the author here. Give a little bit more... how should I put it? Give a little bit more to the sentence as to what you're actually referring, because that specific number, I'm quite certain she's referring to this line, the great deal, quite a lot of confidence line here in this Gallup poll. And this is 2024 here. The 32% is very little none, actually, or that 32% could also be this sum here. They happen to overlap perfectly. It's actually 36%, great deal, quite a lot. So that's where I gotta say, I think the free the inquiry thing is wrong. Not 100% because it wasn't very specific as to which thing here in the line you're referring to, so it's kind of hard to check. But my guess is they meant this line, and it is. This is actually the first time I've seen it well laid out like this. It's a pretty dramatic drop off here, and they go on further in this thing to highlight, who is having the worst. Because even this is where people need to pay attention, because even among more left leaning in the Democrats, trust has fallen off there. Here too, because this is the great deal, quite a lot, and the sum line, both of those have actually fallen off between 2023 and 2024 here. And this has gone up dramatically, so has this, and it's even going up over here too. So it's not like it's not a little bit across the board. And there are some things here that they get into, like reasons Americans are not confident. I saw this when I looked at this poll before, and I'm like, I might have to come back to this by itself, just look at this and do a video on this one, because they get into some very interesting things, because there's the political agendas thing, but then they go in here, what percentage, what percentage of each kind of thing are actually under here. And that's where it, that's where it gets interesting. Not proper, like wrong focus, things like that. So why it gets at something that has been bugging me for a while. Why are people not confident? Why has that number fallen off a cliff since 2015? With respect to the universities. But anyway, so I don't think this number is correct. I think she meant 36%, but I will, hopefully they'll come back to that and fix it. Many argue that this decline is due in part to the ideological imbalance from within the academy itself and the resulting politicization of academic research. That erosion of trust has not gone unnoticed. In fact, it has arguably fueled the political backlash we now see from the right. As Bauerlein of New College remarked during his plenary session, quote, "If the university had not sunk so low in public esteem, this would not have been politically possible. The estrangement of town and gown is what licensed this process to take place." Town and gown, that's a funky name for that. I know what he's getting at, but it's just funky. "Many now see the academy as needing a top-down correction. Many others in the academy, however, perhaps a majority, view government intervention as an existential threat to our universities. And leaders like Michael Roth, Harvard's interim president Alan Garber, and others are right to focus their energy on defending institutions from these attacks. They are quite literally on the front lines of a national political struggle. For them, worries about the sociology department, for example, may seem trivial by comparison. But for most of our members, their departments are exactly where their work for reform occurs. Their push for open inquiry and viewpoint diversity is not happening in the state legislatures or congressional hearings. It's happening in faculty meetings on hiring committees, during their classroom discussions at disciplinary conferences, and in academic journals. That's what they have the power to bring That's where they have the power, to bring about sustainable, wow, I can't talk today, sustainable change. And that's where HXA members are making a tangible difference year after year. Over the last decade, our members have modeled the scholarly virtues we promote. They've hosted campus events, led campus workshops, engaged the public, improved pedagogy, created new ways to conduct research, and organized reform efforts on their campuses. These actions matter. They have expanded the bounds of what can be said, heard, and considered on campus. They have launched new initiatives and published impactful research. They are the steady force pushing institutions closer to their highest ideals. If we want our universities to be seen once again as institutions committed to knowledge seeking, not ideological gatekeeping, we must embrace both forms of action, internal reform and external defense. This is not a zero-sum game. That's exactly the point. You can deal with these two things at the same time. In fact, you really need to. Really need to be addressing both things at the same time here, and not just ignoring one in favor of the other. This kind of thing. That's a very tempting thing to do, but they should not ignore the internal issues just because of external things going on. And that would be my position on this, regardless of what the external issue actually was. Any of those kinds of things. So this is a fair point of note here. While university leaders wage the political battle in Washington, faculty and staff must continue the persistent and sustainable work of cultural change on campus from their positions as academic insiders, campus leaders, and principled allies in HXA's mission. The shape of the work depends on where you sit. Two things can be true at once, as Belloc noted. So that's a piece I wanted to highlight here because there is a lot going on, but the Trump administration is doing some pretty wild stuff that I definitely don't agree with. But also, there's still the issue of the academy. And, I don't know. I will be very curious if Gallup reruns this poll this summer. If timing-wise, they may have already rerun it and they're just trying to figure out, compiling data and information. What will they see this year that might be different from last year? We'll have to find out. We're not going to know. With that, we'll have to see how things change. But tell me what you think. Hit the like button on the way at the door, comment the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, all that lovely good jazz. Until next time, I'm Adrian. Stay curious.